Everybody to Textiles and Tea with the Handweavers Guild of America. I'm Kathy Group. I'm the advertising manager and I'm your host today. We want to thank the Jacksonville Weavers Guild for being our sponsor today. They're celebrating 50 years of being a guild. Congratulations to you all. That's quite a feat. We appreciate you taking being a sponsor to help celebrate this mile marker in your guild. And congratulations again and thank you. We will take questions at the end of the program, as we always do. And just a reminder, please put them in the Q&A and not in the chat. We love your chats. Those are great comments. We will really want to keep those coming, but I can't always see those questions, but I can see them in the Q&A. So keep the questions coming, but just put them in the Q&A for me, please. Today, we have the one, the only Deb Essen. Deb, in 2004, Deb achieved the Certificate of Excellence in Handweaving, and we're going to talk some about that. Through the Handweavers Guild of America, she, in 2011, she was inducted into the Montana Circle of American Masters in Folk and Traditional Art. Her book, Easy Weaving with Supplemental Warps, was published by Interweave Press in 2016. In 2022, the book was re-released because it was so popular, and with an expanded version with more projects and weave structures by Schiffer Publishing. She has recorded 5 weaving videos. She's a busy woman. Available through Long Thread Media, ranging from supplemental warps to profile drafting. She's written multiple feature articles for Handwoven and Little Loom magazines. Deb is passionate about teaching about the wonders of weaving and teaches on workshops, guilds, regional, national conferences, and festivals. We are so excited to have you here today, Deb.
Hi, Kathy. Hello, everyone that's joining us. I'm delighted to be here.
Welcome. So we're going to start off with, what is your favorite tea?
English breakfast, my dear. Although really? Irish breakfast kind of goes in there a little bit. And the reason is when I was in college, I took a 5-week class on theater in Europe. And I was introduced to actual real English breakfast tea there. And I just never looked back. Lipton's just not the same.
I was going to say, is British English tea different over here than what you get over there?
No, it actually, I actually get the Twinings. So it's very, very, very close to the breakfast tea over in England. So a little bit of trivia to start our day.
Fun facts to know and tell. That's right. Well, how did you get started in fiber?
Well, if we go back far enough, my mom taught me how to sew when I was about 9 or 10 years old. And at about that same time, I actually got to see a weaver for the first time. And what happened is that our Lutheran church in good old central Minnesota had a Lucia Day celebration, which is that pagan celebration that we've all taken over to welcome the light back to the Scandinavian northern countries. And I was supposed to bus tables. She was going to work in the kitchen as part of the lunch that they had, and I was going to bus tables. However, there was this person there, this woman who had a loom and a spinning wheel. And I spent the entire time watching her do this magical stuff on these machines. And I was just fascinated. I think I actually bust one table, but we're not really sure anymore. And then you know, life gets in the way. You know, you go to school, you go to college, you get out, get married, have kids. And then we went on vacation when I was in my 30s out to Montana, and we decided to move out here. And I went home and went to Minneapolis and went, oh my gosh, I never learned how to weave or spin. I mean, will I find anybody in Montana who can teach me that? I still want to do it. So I took beginning spinning and intermediate spinning and rigid heddle and floor loom, as many classes I could jam in. And then I get out to Montana and find out that you can't swing a purse without hitting a fiber artist out here. So I found my tribe without even trying. So that's kind of the long version of why it took me so long to start doing this. But it started with potholders and it just went on from there.
Isn't it funny? You just never know where they're going to be, you know? when people call
Oh
and
yeah.
say, I don't think there's any weavers in this area. And I'm thinking, yeah, I bet there are. You just,
There.
they're there.
Well, and when I found
Montana
out
is a
later,
hotbed.
yeah, it is. And there's a woman that people may be familiar with, Mary Miggs Atwater.
I think I've heard her name.
And she happened to write the Shuttlecraft newsletters out of a little teeny town in Montana called Basin. It was a mining town. And she did that whole newsletter. She wrote her books, and she started 8 guilds across the state of Montana.
Really?
2 of them are still in existence. They just both of them celebrated their 75th anniversaries. One is Missoula, Montana, which is about an hour north of me, and the other one is in Helena, Montana, which is the capital of Montana.
Now, which one is Mary Miggs Atwater named after? One of them's named
That
after
is
her.
down in Utah.
Oh, that's in
The
Utah.
Mary Miggs Atwater Guild. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's a Montanan, and we
Well, way to
actually
go,
had
Montana.
yeah, and her great granddaughter spoke at the Montana Association of Weavers and Spinners conference a couple of years
Uh-huh.
ago. It was just delightful because she had all the inside stories. She knew. She very interesting woman, very interesting.
Well, because you started weaving later, I mean, it wasn't like you didn't get to weave when you first wanted to, and you had to wait a little bit. How do you think that changed your approach to weaving?
Other than me having that panic attack and thinking I had to learn as much as I possibly could, as fast as I possibly could, um, I I have to say it's kind of this weird thing where I think there's a genetic footprint that is kind of this DNA kind of thing where you just know what you're supposed to do, and you it's like you've done it before. If I were kind of a spiritual reincarnation kind of person, I'd also say that maybe I did it in a past life. But there's just some things that you'll do that you go, this feels right. This feels like I've done this before. Not that I was good in the beginning. There was a lot of practice, but it's one of those things that is just deep down inside me. That's what I was supposed to do.
Huh, that's interesting. Well, you are a busy, busy woman. You're a weaver, you're a teacher, you're an author. So how do you balance those three? And of the three, which one do you think takes most of your time?
Balance? You're talking balance here? Come on. So, it's interesting. I will say I'm a very organized person, and I am very time centric, and I'm able to block my day into, okay, I'm going to have to get this done in the morning, and this is in the afternoon. And of the 3 of them, the business side definitely takes the most time. And I wish the weaving side could take more of it, because I'd like to play. And there are times when I can just sit down and play and figure things out and try something different. And then someone will send in an order and I'll go, oh, okay, hold that thought, loom, and I'll be back after I get this taken care of. It's a lot of time splitting.
Well, I would imagine it also shifts when you're writing, right?
When I'm writing, it's an all day, every day. And then if I get an order in, then I split my days again.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to do better. I find the later in the day it is, the better I am at writing something.
Really?
It's like if I work on something in the morning, be it an order or maybe weaving, it's like I have like the 2 sides of my brain, your left side and your right side, and they're having this conversation. And sometimes my right brain is just too distractible. It's going off on other things, but I'll think through things while I'm getting warps wound or putting things onto the loom. And then I can go to the computer and put it down with the keyboard, usually.
Mm-hmm.
The first draft is always just a quick, get this all down while it's still there. And then you go back and go, well, that's interesting. time for a little revision time. But it's like
What
the
was I
notes are there.
thinking?
Yeah.
Well, you have a amazing business, and if people are not aware of it, excuse me, you sell weaving kits, among other things, but the big thing is your weaving kits. And here's a good example of there's this gorgeous scarf, and you too can make this gorgeous scarf with this kit. So how did you, I mean, so many people focus on yarns, not kits. How did you decide to go down that path?
Ooh, that one I actually have a quicker answer.
Oh,
Yes. So when I started bouncing around in my head, I'd like to sell my stuff, the things that I weave. I discovered real fast I am not a production weaver. I love the design process.
mhm.
I love winding the warp and getting it onto the loom. And then I weave about 18 inches and I go, oh, it turned out, or whatever. And then I go, now you have to do all of that warp. And the last time I did any production weaving, I had put on 7 scarves
Mm.
onto the loom, and they were all the same, but I had done some random dye onto the warp. And by the first one, I thought I was in hell. I really thought I was in hell. And but then I started changing up the weft so that the purple dye I had put onto this white warp was magically changing colors depending on what weft I was using. And I was going, oh, this is really cool. And then it made it go much faster. But yeah, I went, what part of this do you like? You like the design?
Hmm.
You like to wind warps, which I know I'm weird. I like to wind warps and I like to warp my loom and I like to play around with design. So how can I make that happen? And I decided I'd try kits. And the first show I took them to was Convergence Albuquerque in
Yay!
2010, because I went, go big or go home, because if it works with the weavers at Convergence, who are, everybody from someone who's a beginner to I've been weaving since I was in diapers 40, 60, 80 years ago. And it did. I mean, people responded positively to them. And I went home to my husband. I said, I'm going to do this. And off I went.
Well, that was my next question, because when I read that, I went, you like making warps and you make all of those warps for all of your kids?
Every single one is what
Wow.
is wound on a warping board by me, myself, and I. And yeah, I like winding warps because really it's the only time we get to touch the yarn.
Oh,
And because when you think about it, that you're touching the yarn then, and you touch
mhm.
it a little when you're threading, but when you're actually weaving, you never touch the yarn, really. And
Good
so,
point. Huh.
there's nothing like winding a silk warp,
Ooh.
you know, or one that's out of natural colored cotton that is soft and silky and it just flows. And then, I put in my ear pods and grab my phone and listen to podcasts and things like that. So, the right brain is entertained and the left brain can concentrate. And yeah, I know I'm weird, but I like winding warps. So if you get a kit from me, yes, I wound the warp.
I'm sure there are people everywhere who are going, maybe I should rethink that whole warping thing. She seems to love it.
I do.
Well, I always ask our guests if they're more interested in color or pattern. And I'm looking at your work and I'm thinking, you have to say color because your colors are wonderful. Just how you combine them and they're bright and enticing. Look at these colors, they're gorgeous. But then I've heard you say that you are much more a pattern structure person. So would you talk about the two?
Well, I think they're a handshake. Now, years ago, I took a class at a convergence in Vancouver from Madeline
Ooh.
Vanderhoot. And she has this saying that there are 2 kinds of weavers. There are technical weavers and there are color and texture weavers. And the color and texture people collect yarn. They may not go to anything more complicated than a twill, but it's all about the yarn and adding in textures and weaving and getting your designs that way. And
Mm-hmm.
then there's the technical structure people who collect yarn and looms. because we're into all the different weave structures. We want to push them to another space. We collect looms because, 4 is never enough, and then 8's not enough, and then 16's not enough. And next thing you know, you have dobbies in your house. But I kind of consider myself to actually be a structured technical weaver who plays a lot with color and loves playing around how the weave structure will make colors either play well together or just play in ways that you just didn't anticipate. And these are 2 great examples. These are both kits. The one on the right is turn twill blocks. And all I do is change in that kit. The different colors are done just with the weft. And in the left is a towel that is a false damask, and it also changes the block colors just by changing the weft.
Ooh, smart.
It's great fun. It's just, and I've learned a lot. I've been self-taught with the whole color thing, learning how colors play together. Depends on yarn size. It depends on value. Value is the big thing. And it's one of the classes that I teach a lot. But really, I just like to see designs come out of my fabric that I can manipulate by treadling and threading. And
well, I love those patterns, and I just think how smart they are that you don't have to completely, rewarp your loom to get 2 different looking towels.
oh yeah, it's great fun. I had so much fun doing those towels. I had so many color samples by the time I was done. It was really hard to decide which colors to put into kits. I was like, well, and that's all Lunatic Fringe yarns, which is awesome. I mean, their color range is just right in my wheelhouse. Yes, yes, yes. Very set, very deep colors. Yeah, they're tints and tones. I like those, but their original Lunatic Fringe tubular spectrum is like, yeah.
We like our friends at Lunatic.
Yes.
Well, we talked about in the opening about that you have a certificate of excellence from the Handweavers Guild of America. And if you would just briefly give an explanation what the COE is, in case somebody's not heard of it. And then would you just talk about that experience for you?
Yeah, so the certificate of excellence, there's 2 levels. There's level 1 and level 2. And they both are independent study of weaving. The level 1 is the one that you have to start with. And there's a book that you get through the Handweavers Guild of America. And you start with color theory and work your way through from basic plain weave to finger manipulated weaves on up to multi-shaft weaves and all these different weave structures. So it's this huge introduction to all these weave structures that you can play with, and you learn at your own, you're doing it at your own pace. And so although don't do like I did, which is I got my book, I decided to do it, and then I sent my money in to be juried. However, when you send your money in to be juried, you are scheduled for the next one, which was in 2 years. And 2 years is not enough time to do the COE. It's not. I wouldn't advise 14, like I know somebody else who did in 14 years. I think actually more like 4 years when you have a life that you have is kind of a good range to do it. But then you guys won't give your money back if you send it in. Sandra said, no.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, because people call in and I'll say, you can do it in 2 years, but and I don't
it
get
was hard.
Me, so I'm glad you're saying that. So when people think on it, give yourself plenty of time. And you're right, if you have a life. That's the other thing I say. If you don't work and you don't have kids, you don't have family, sure.
Yeah. But yeah, it was tough. I actually had there were times I would have projects on 2 looms.
Oh wow.
Just because it made me feel like I was getting more done. Even though I suppose wasn't, but they were warped and all ready to go. But I learned so much from that. It was the best weaving class I've taken ever. It's wonderful.
Well, that was going to be my next question was, what did you come away with? And, if you had to do, other than the time crunch, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Oh, okay.
In fact, there are times, you know what the hardest thing is though, about the COE?
Uh-uh.
It's when you put all of your samples, 40 woven samples, all your written work into that box. And you go to the UPS store and you put it up and you're going, this is the X number of years of my life. Oh my God. And they go, would you like insurance with that? And you go, how much, how much, how much would be $10,000? Well, no, it should be more than that. And then it was like, I didn't want to give the box up. I was like, oh, okay, no, okay. And then when I finally got back home, I was like, oh, yay, it's home, it's here. And, the other thing I love about the COE, it's not just the 40 WOMA samples. What is it? 60% of your grade is your written work. Isn't that what it is? So you have to demonstrate that you understand what you're handing in. And that was huge for me because there were a lot of things that you do and you just follow the pattern. But the COE says, well, now you can follow a pattern. We're understanding that, but you have to tell us how this all worked and analyze it for us. And that was awesome. It just took me to a whole new level of weaving. And at that time, it was, the internet wasn't, this was 2002, 2004. I was borrowing weaving books and everything from everyone I knew. I met lots of people.
Well, and I think it's great that some guilds or groups of people use the COE booklet as like a study group.
Oh, yeah.
Because it really can walk you down that path of, now, do you know this? And then you build on that and then, keep going with that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's an awesome program. Don't ever discontinue it.
Thank you. Well, the one thing I love is your vast variety of looms you have. You have big looms all the way to little looms. And you've got a big floor loom, you've got pin looms, and usually, not always, but usually I would say weavers kind of land on one size. They might do something in other places, but they land on one side just because it's so different, right? But you haven't done that. You just do work in all of them. So why is that? And while you're talking, I want us to look at these. I've got two images here. That was a six chef loom, and these are our rigid heddle loom. So as we're watching these, why the different sizes? How can you do them all and they all appeal to you?
Well, some people might call it ADHD, but I prefer to think of it as I'm a very curious person. I always have been. It's like, how does that work and why does it work that way? My cousin and I were actually fairly famous for taking things apart to see if we could put them back together again. So for me, it's a curiosity factor. And I have to say, I didn't start out saying I was going to weave in all these looms. It just, I got the chance to be introduced to all of them. My first class was in rigid heddle, and then I found you can do a lot of stuff with rigid heddle that I never dreamed of. And then the next was just floor loom, and then I was blown away at how much you could do just on 4 shafts. And then it's just how does that work? Where does that come from? And then toss color into the whole mixture, and you've got a whole nother curiosity level that has to be satisfied. I mean, I was going to do the level 2, and that's why the book came out of the Easy Weaving with Supplemental Warps, is because there are supplemental warps in the co. And I told my husband after I got it done, and after few years, I said, I think I'm going to do the level 2, and I'm going to do it in supplemental warps. And I explained to him, my thoughts where I'd do it, and then I would write a book about it. He said, well, why wait with the book? You've been weaving these for years. Why don't you write the book and call it your COE 2? Okay, I'll do that. And that was how that all happened.
Well, I was going to ask you about your book, and this is a nice segue into that. Is that I have to ask, why did you call it Easy Weaving with Supplemental Warps? I mean, is it easy? Really?
Well, first of all, it is easy. It's
Okay.
way easier than anybody thinks. And actually, Anita Osterhoek was the editor of Handwoven when I proposed the book through Interweave. And she was also my editor. And she came up with the title Easy Weaving with Supplemental Warps. I had weaving with supplemental warps, and I said, "Ooh," and she went, you make it easy, and it is easy because once you get the whole loom set up, it's really fast to weave with supplemental warps. You just get this great pattern. You don't have to futz with two shuttles. You don't have to change colors all the time. You just, you're just going, which satisfies the little overachiever in me, I guess. I don't know. I'm always on to the next project. When I get halfway through one project, I'm already thinking about another project. And so anything that makes it happen fast makes me happy.
I like that. Well, when we're talking about different loom sizes, one of the things I love that you do is you do the little looms, and it all started with the Zoom loom, right?
Yep.
And so you make these amazing critters, and we've got images of it. I'm jumping around here with Mandy. Sorry, Mandy. But we got these little critters that you make that I just love. So how did you get into that? How did did one day you wake up and said, I'm going to make critters?
No, absolutely not. So it was 2013. I was at the TNNA wholesale show. That's the National Needle Arts Association wholesale trade show, which is where yarn shops go to shop. And that was the year that Shacked introduced the Zoom Loom Pin Loom. And I was talking to them at the show, and Jane Patrick came over with a Zoom Loom and said, would you be interested in doing kits with the little pin loom squares? And of course I said, well, yeah, sure. And I get home and I'm going, well, you haven't woven on one of these since you tried the little wooden frame ones and didn't like them years ago, except that Shacked and John worked with John Malarkey and fixed all the things that I didn't like about pin looms. It's a nice flat loom with a wide edge on it that's easy to hang on to. You're not catching your needle on. So there's all these things. And then I'm working away and making little squares, trying to think of what I'm going to make for a kit, because a scarf felt really uninspired, a shawl felt uninspired, and I'm weaving these green squares out of green knitting yarn. And I go, I wonder if I can make a turtle. And so I wove up a bunch of little squares because, they only take about 10-15 minutes. And the first one looked a lot like an armadillo. But I kind of got things figured out after that. And it just took off from Two Dot the Turtle. And it's all about no squares are cut in the making of the critters. It's all about how you fold the squares to make other shapes and put the little shapes together. And
Kind of like
and
weaving
I'm
origami.
yeah, it is kind of. I mean, I'm one of those people that if you need someone to pack your suitcase in the most efficient way and everything will fit with more room than you thought, I'm your person. I'm all about how to fold things into different shapes and to fit them all together. And so the critters, and there was a holiday line, and the critters had to retire as kits last year, but they're coming out as a book.
Well, these are amazing. Now we can get these patterns, right?
Yeah, the holiday patterns you could get from me directly. You just go to my website and use the contact page. There is a page on there that shows what all the critters and the holiday kits look like. The critters, which are the animals, there's a panda, there's sheep, there's kangaroo, there's an elephant, there's a teddy bear. Those are all going to be part of a book that's coming out with Schiffer, fingers crossed, next year. That will be all 30 of my critters that I had as kits. And so The holiday kits are not going to be in that one. So I'm selling those patterns direct to people if they want to just get hold of me through the contact page.
Oh, good. That's good. These are so cute. I mean,
I have so much
so
fun doing
in the
these.
hair. How cute. Now, the Zoom loom, I don't know the Zoom loom that well, but it's how big is the pin loom? How big is that Zoom loom? Is it 6 by
So the one that Shack makes, it's a 4-inch square that it makes.
4? Okay.
So it's about yay big, yay square.
Mhm.
If I go out of camera range, I could actually get mine because it's sitting over there. But you can do so many things weaving this little square. It's like you can weave it all as a solid. You could do like that picture of the ghost where it had the spots of color against a white background. That's just weaving with a different color. You can wind on the first 2 rounds onto the zoom loom and then tie on a different color, and then you want and then weave with that new color, and you can make little stripes. You can weave twill. You can weave pickup patterns. I had no idea this little tiny pin loom could do so many things. I mean, it's way fun, and it's such a good entry drug. But I've had little kids when I was doing shows. 9-year-olds can weave on a pin loom, and usually I don't go usually younger than 9 because you have a really long weaving needle.
Oh.
And they tend to, like, at 6, 7, 8 wave things around that you're going, don't do that, it's sharp and pointy, please don't do that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, you mentioned it before, but I want to talk some more about it. You have a new book coming out in 2025, right?
Yep, I have 2.
Talk more about those. And you
I
heard
have
it here
2.
first.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so there will be the pattern book. They're both coming out from Schiffer. The Zoom Loom Critters, they're called the Swatch Critters pattern book. That was going to come out in 2024, but then we had some disagreements on the backgrounds that I used for all the process photos, and they asked me to retake all the process photos, all 222 of them. Thank you very much. Thank God for my husband. I owe him big time. He's a photographer and he took all the pictures, but that bumped that to 2025 because in the meantime, while that was going on, I did that last year, and then I started in on a profile drafting book, and that is, fingers crossed, I have no control, it's gone to the publisher, and now
okay.
that goes to the book designer. So it's gone, but it's to the editor and the book designer, and hopefully I'm hoping it'll be in the fall winter catalog at Schiffer. I don't know that for sure, but that is
in 25.
In 2025.
Okay.
So both books, fingers crossed, will be out next year.
Now, what's the title of the supplemental warp, or do you have one yet?
Or you mean the profile drafting one?
I mean the profile drafting.
Yeah, the working title is right now is Profile Drafting for Handweavers, just because it's the working title, and I need somebody that's not as close to it as me to come up with a title. But what I do is I explain profile drafting and how it works. And then I have 13 different weave structures that are all block weaves that will use profile drafts, and then I have 16 projects in the book. At least 1 and sometimes 2 of each weave structure. And each one comes with a different profile draft. So, but I teach, you're being taught how to break the code of profile drafts, because I've taught this for years, and the same questions keep coming up every time I teach it. And I go, I should write this all down. I should write this all down. And finally I said, I'll see if Schiffer is interested in this too. And then when they said yes to both books, I went, how cool. What have I done? Oh my Lord.
At the time, it seemed like such a good idea.
But I think it'll be fun. It's much more conversational than, a rigid textbook kind of thing. It's more like the voice that I use when I'm teaching. And lots and lots of diagrams, lots and lots of pictures, lots and lots of going down the wrong path and how not to go down that wrong path, because you will. Let me just waylay you before you go down that path. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. Next year could be a big year.
It's a lot of work to write a book.
Yeah, yeah.
People
You know,
make fun of me because they say, you always ask that question, but it's true. I mean, why do you, what's in it for you? That's a lot of sacrifice of time, energy, sanity. What do you get back from it?
you know, I am a firm believer in I would not be a weaver if it hadn't been for the weavers before me that wrote it down. And the longer I've been weaving since the early 1990s. And longer I've been weaving, I've been snatching up books all over the place. And so many of them are out of print now. And they're wonderful books. And I was thinking about it and said, I'll teach profile drafting, especially. I said, I'll teach that. And then I realized that there's only so many people you can reach teaching at a time. And then I decided, well, I could do a book on it. Yeah, I'll do a book on it. Yeah, because there's not a profile drafting book out there. I haven't found it. There's books that include a chapter on profile drafting or some information, usually enough to get you into deep, deep trouble. And so I thought, I'm just going to put it out there and see if people salute or not, because it's, it is a lot of work, but I really do enjoy, I enjoy writing and I really love weaving. And writing it is that step beyond teaching. I think it was told to me, if you practice something, you start to learn it. When you teach something, you understand it. And when you write it out down, you not only can do it and understand it, but you can explain it. And that's the hard part about writing books, is to write things in a way that someone who doesn't have a ton of experience can follow it. Plus, there are verbal learners and there are visual learners. So what I really worked, starting with the Supplemental Warps book, is I would have the explanation in the writing, but then I would have photos that would be captioned with the information that I had just written about. For those of us like me who are visual learners, want to look at the picture and read about this much. And so that is what I do when I write. And it's a lot, but I really do love passing. I feel like it's an obligation I have to those weavers that came before us to pass the information that they gave me onto a new generation. And plus, when the apocalypse happens, we will be in high demand. This went through my head all the time during COVID lockdown. I'm like, when they find out they can't just go to the store and buy their clothes, we're going to be appreciated.
They're going to love us.
The knitters and the weavers and the spinners.
Oh, I know. I love that. Your enthusiasm is just so contagious. Just talking with you, I just want to go do something. I want to go weave because it comes through so wonderfully. So, when I read on your website and I hear you talk, you really care about your customers, and it's more than you definitely want them to be happy. You want them to be able to make something and that it looks good. But the other thing I kept seeing in some of your writings and things is that you really want people to have fun and to enjoy what they do, and not be miserable trying to make something. So it just feels like you get in tune with people. Have you always been someone that kind of got in tune with other people and as you got to know them?
boy, I never thought of myself that way, because I always thought of myself as the shy kid. On those scales, I'm like right in the middle, and introvert, extrovert. I'm like right in the middle. Um, but I I get so excited about learning things and the stuff that has always been easiest to learn are from people that made it enjoyable. So maybe it's the teacher's gene in me. My whole family is, both sides, is just full of teachers. I did not teach in public school because, as I said, I would love to teach adults. I don't want to teach children because I'd like to continue liking children. And I don't think it would go well if I was teaching them every day.
I get that.
But it's, it's the I just have to share it. It's like it keeps bubbling up inside of me, and I get excited about something, and I'm going, I need to tell somebody about it. Well, the only people that understand are other weavers, so I need to tell the weavers about it somehow or another, and books are a way to do that, and other things. The first time, can I tell a little story about the first book?
Oh, I'd love it.
So, the process was, I had taken a class where we had to do our 5-year goals. It was the Montana Entrepreneurship Program, and it was the business side of art. And one of my 5-year goals was to write a book. And that goal time period was coming up, and I thought, I'm just going to do a book proposal for F&W Media. I'm just going to send it off. It's going to be for Supplemental Warps. I'm going to see what happens. Because, my husband said, why are you going to do the CO2? I'll do this. Type it up. They say, we'll get back to you in 60 days. And I said, okay, not going to think about this until after Christmas. Next day, literally 24 hours later, I get a call from Anita. I said, we are so glad you want to write this book. We've been waiting for somebody to do this. When can you start? And I'm talking to her, and I'm going, oh, this is very cool. Yes, yes. Oh, yes, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And I got off the phone, hung up, and went, I can't say on public, I'm writing a weaving book. Oh, what did I just do? Oh my gosh, what did I just do? And I said, well, you're going to have to figure it out. You've been teaching it. Just take the teaching and put it in a book. It's a lovely thing. So, did I answer the question? I go off on tangents.
No, it's what we were talking about. And I don't know how people do it. I'm too ADD too. I'd be all over the place. So I have to ask you something. I read this and cracked up laughing. Did you really teach weaving on a cruise?
I did. And it was a great thing. I was at TNNA like 2018, 2017, somewhere in there, and a woman named Patty Jacobson, who owns Sheep Thrills yarn shop in Fort Lauderdale, got talked to me, Deborah Jorko, and Liz Gibson about being teachers on a cruise. And we were like, yeah, it'll happen. And it did. It happened in 2019, just before COVID, not realizing how lucky we were on that. And it was fun. It was like a little weaving conference on a boat. And we would have, when we were at sea, you could swim in the pool and all that, and we would teach weaving classes. Deborah and Liz both taught rigid heddle classes, and I taught pin loom and tablet weaving, and because they're small, and we had a blast. I did let me know that I am not a cruise ship kind of person for my own personal vacation. But we still had a lot of fun, and there are some really interesting stories that came out of that had nothing to do with our side. But yeah, I felt sorry for Patty several times trying to organize with these cruise directors and all that. It was amazing. It was amazing, but it was fun. I think it should be done again.
I do too. I would do that. That would be fun. I just
Yeah.
had visions of, the loom sliding across the ship when the seas got rough. But I guess
but they're so big.
I know.
There was one day I was actually teaching in one of the dining rooms, and it was really, really rough out, and you could just barely feel the boat doing this. And we weren't on one of the giant cruise ships. We were on what they consider a little cruise ship with like 1,500 or 2,000 people instead of the 10,000.
Well, I think I would use that as my excuse that, I wasn't doing a very good job. Lousy salvages. Well, the ship kept moving. So that's why my salvages were bad.
It was happy hour. And
Right. You can drink all day.
the drinks were included in our ticket. I hate to wait. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, other than doing another cruise, what's next for you?
What's next? I got both books off to Schiffer. I am going on vacation next month with my husband to celebrate our 40th anniversary. And after that, I'll probably be working on the rewrites when I get back.
So are you
Right
teaching?
now,
Are you teaching in person?
I am teaching in person. I'm actually teaching in person more than I'm teaching via Zoom. It's worked out really nicely. That whole panic attack we all had in 2020 and not, conferences canceled, all that other stuff. And to be able to teach via Zoom is not only really convenient for me, because I don't have to in January worry about is the plane going to take off in Missoula because the weather's bad. But I have had Zoom classes that have been all 5 North America time zones and someone in Europe in the same class, which makes it very complicated. I just say things like, well, we'll be back together at 15 minutes after the hour. And then I'm teaching in person again, which is great fun. I mean, Zoom is good, but it's hard for a teacher because when you're explaining something, you're not able to scan the class and see those little frowns that happen or somebody cocks their head and you go, oh, lost a couple, 3 people there, got to go back and retrack. Or you can float over when somebody's having problems in class and just help them out. And you can't do that with Zoom. There are classes I won't do anymore in Zoom because they just don't work. Supplemental Warps is one of them.
Did you mention where you're teaching this summer? You're at some conferences, right?
I have some conferences coming up. Yes, I am teaching at MAFA. I'm going to teach profile drafting for 2.5 days at MAFA. And then I'm going to News, which is the New England Weaver Seminar out on the East Coast again. And I'm going to be teaching Twilby Magic. And we're going to do round robin on twill weave structures. There's be things in there that you don't expect and usually don't weave. It'll be fun. We'll have fun.
Oh, good. So y'all check it out. She's going to be a busy woman this summer. Busy. Okay, we have some questions. Some of you've already answered, so I've skipped some of them. Somebody wants to know, what is the difference between a pin loom and a zoom loom? I think I started that.
Oh, well, they're both the same thing. Here, I'll be back in a nanosecond.
If you've all watched the show before, you know I lose the guest all the time, but they always come
because
back.
we're in our studio. And so this is the box that Shack has their little zoom loom in. So they had me at the box because of a little carrying handle and it's like everything's all stuff. They had me at the box. But this is what the zoom loom looks like.
Okay.
So so it's easy to hang on to and it's got the pins all spaced. And then they have these really cool little things at the corner. It has a 1 here and an arrow. So you start at this corner and you go across and you get down to 2. And then they have a little arrow that says, now you go back this way. So when you have that brain synapse failure that invariably happens when you haven't done it in a while, you go, oh, just follow the directions. They're right here on the loom. So this is the zoom loom by Shack versus a pin loom that you can get lots of different kinds of pin looms. Turtle Looms does all different shapes. The zoom loom only comes in the 4-inch squares. There are other ones that come in rectangles, there are triangles, diamond shapes. They're pretty cool.
Excellent. This is from Kathleen Cook. Hi, Deb. Love your energy. Will you be teaching at Handwig in 2025? Hope so.
I haven't been invited and I have not applied.
Well, explain what
So
Handwig is.
that's Association of Northwest Weavers Guild. And Montana is part of that whole Handwig organization. And I had not been invited, and I'm sure they've booked already for next year. So yeah, I never think of Handwig is to in time to go, oh, are they doing? I wonder if they've done the applications yet. And I'll get there and go, yes, they did.
Oops.
4 months ago. Because time goes like that.
Oh, I know. Oh, Karen LeBlanc wants to know if you're going to do a book on card weaving.
No.
No. Okay.
John Malarkey has done tablet weaving. I mean, he's extraordinary. And he's got a couple of books out. I think they're both self-published. He's got a video that you can get through Long Thread Media as a download. That's pretty darn good. And I love tablet weaving, but I love the other stuff more. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I just haven't. It's one of those that was the very first weaving I taught myself because I just couldn't wait for the rigid heddle class to start. So I found the book in the guild library and I taught myself how to do tablet weaving. And I still don't understand how that works. It's just fascinating.
Magic.
It is total magic. I love it. But
I'd love to learn how. When you said you taught that, I thought, ooh, on a cruise learning tablet weaving. I could do that. I could do that.
Yeah, it was fun. It was just the basics where we got started and we got everything all warped, and I taught them the tricks that I had. And there was a point we had lost my classroom, and I found this quiet place out by the rail that I went, oh, we could just tie everybody up to the rail and sit and weave here on this side deck. That could be fun. And but then they got us into a dining room, and then
oh, Chrislyn Carter has added the Handwig. She said still open.
Oh.
So you can teach. Card weaving.
When is Handwig next year?
I don't know.
But
we'll have to click. You have to click on the information.
I'll have to figure it out.
I'll
figure
it. Now I'm not sure what Karen is asking here, but she says, I have a weird approach to supplemental warps. Can you talk about how you first approached supplementary warps and how you approach them today? Thanks.
Okay, I'm not Karen, can you
do supplemental warps without having an extra back beam?
Yeah, I do. And then that might be what a lot of people think is that you have to have a second back beam to weave with supplemental warps. But oops, I can't do Handwig. I'll be at Matha. That just came up. Sorry, okay. I just saw it in chat. Somebody wrote what the dates were. Anyway, so you do not need a second back beam. The first one I ever did was for the COE. I did velvet. And I spent 2.5 pages explaining to the judges why I was never doing velvet again. And things like velvet and terry cloth are actually much harder if you have a second back beam and you tie on to that, because you need all this slack for these loops. And so I had done some research around, and in one old book was the put weights on your bundles of supplemental warps. And I started doing that, and I never looked back because it's easy and you don't have to have a second back beam, and second back beams are expensive. So I'm not sure if it's even close to answering her question.
No, that's good. That's good. We just got a couple of minutes, and somebody, and I don't even know if you want to try to answer this. Somebody keeps asking, what is, where did it go? Oh, shoot. No, I'm blanking out. Oh, what is profile drafting? In 1 minute or less, can you do an overview?
Yeah, profile drafting is the graphic you create a graphic picture of what your textile overall pattern design will be. And you can take that same profile, and we call that a profile draft. It will tell you what part of that graph, it's kind of like a shorthand. What part of that graph represents this kind of pattern in this weave structure?
Mhm.
And depending on how depending on what weave structure you use, the tie-ups, the threading, and the treadling is different, but you can still use the same profile draft to get the overall same textile design.
Thank you.
Did I do it?
Well, I think it's one of those things that you really got to delve into it and say, you know, even something as simple as twill, when you try to explain what that is, it's like, but when you see it and you start getting involved with it, you know what, y'all, just take the class. Go take her class. Buy her book.
Come play with me at MAFA.
There you go.
There we go. Get your guild to bring me in for in-person
MAFA.
or via Zoom. I do that one on Zoom. So
Yeah, somebody said
there's our commercial. We're done now.
Okay. Somebody said, is this live? You're talking about this summer. Well, for most of us, this summer means 25. We're done
Yeah,
with
I'm
summer.
sorry.
This
Yeah.
summer is 25. We're already planning where we're going and what we're doing, what conferences we're doing next summer. So when we say this summer, we mean 25.
The one coming up next.
Yes. Well, I can't believe it, but we need to stop. You're so wonderful. Thank you so much for being on here.
I enjoyed being with everyone. Thank you so much.
We'll talk more later. I
Okay.
do want to thank you for being on here, and y'all go to her website. There's so much more to see. You can see all of her cute little critters, and you can find out about the patterns. You can see where she's going next. There's so much information at her website, djehandwovens.com. We want to thank our sponsor. We appreciate them being our sponsor today. Again, Jacksonville Weavers Guild, happy anniversary, 50 years. That's amazing. And thank you for supporting us in your celebration. That's a wonderful thing to do. Thank you so much. If you want to sponsor an episode of Textiles and Tea, or your guild, or your business, or a group of you want to sponsor an episode, please go to our website at weavespindye.org and you can find a place there. It will show you where you can pick a date and pay for your sponsorship of an episode or 2 or 3, whatever you would like to do. We appreciate it so much. We have started something new this year. We are doing more social media. And if you do social media at all, if you do Instagram at all, come follow us. We're doing the What's on My Loom Wednesdays. We're doing What I Am Spinning Sundays. I had to make sure I say these right. So if you want to show off what you're making, and we all do, if not a lot, at least a little bit, we want to show everybody what we're working on. And don't you love seeing everybody else's work and see what it's such an inspiration, kind of gets you excited. So come join us. You can get on there with the hashtag WOML Wednesdays, hashtag WIAS Sundays, or you can just do hashtag HGA on Instagram. So come join us, add what you want to show off and what you're making, and let's inspire each other. We will also be having something new this year, and you'll be seeing more about that later. Thank you so much for supporting HGA through donations and through your membership. We appreciate that. Things that happen through HGA, you know, Careers in Textiles, Spinning and Weaving Week, all of that happens because you all donate and because of your membership. And we do appreciate it. It's wonderful. We're getting close to Spinning and Weaving Week. We've got Giving Tuesday coming up. So we're going to be thanking you all so much for doing that. And we appreciate it. Hope you guys have a wonderful week. Next week, we have Caroline Sawyer, but I'm leaving for a while. I'm taking some time off, and we're going to have guest host every week. Next week, it's Tegan Frazino. You may have seen Tegan on here. She was a guest. She had her own podcast for a while. I think they might even be bringing that back. She's wonderful. You're really going to enjoy her. And I really am grateful that she's making Textiles and Tea continue while I'm gone. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next week, and happy tea.